Everybody, Sophie Goose here with another Glyos unboxing slash review video today, and I have something very special to share with all of you. So who remembers these little guys? These little guys were a pair of Crayboth that I got a hold of a few months ago from Cappy, which is one of the newer Glyos storefronts out there. The idea behind Cappy as a Glyos producer slash storefront being that it is re-releases of Glyos figures in unique color schemes with unique bits of lore. And these guys were a part of the Ecopod, which was a group of many different species within the Glyos verse that basically have this belief system around the mighty egg, which is this idea of a universal egg from which all life springs. And these guys, with their little tampographs on the side representing that egg, are part of the Ecopod, a group that exists to protect the basically the ecosystems of the Glyos verse from, let's just say, the inevitable freaking gigantic wars that are happening all the time. So these guys were kind of neat, but what if I told you that this Thursday, at the time of this video's publishing, so Thursday, November 14th, 2019, we're going to be getting a few more folks involved in the Ecopod and servants of the egg. And what if I told you I have them and I can show them to you? Oh, yes. So I was very graciously approached by Cappy, who sent along a few figures from the coming wave for me to not only look at, but also show off to you guys so you can take a look and see what's coming up. And I am very excited to talk about them. So let's get started. So with the idea of the Ecopod being that there is this subset of Crayboth and plenty of different allies across the Glyos verse that work with them, there are many different kind of subsets of the worshippers and the devouts of the egg, and sometimes things have to get a little bit aggressive. And so there is a certain subset of the egg and its supporters that are focused a little bit more on militaristic kind of works and everything like that. And we will get to those in a second. But first, I want to introduce a little somebody who might be a little bit new to some of the newer folks that are coming into the Glyos verse. Thanks to Craftsman's video recently. We're getting a lot new people in Glyos, and I am 100% here for it. But just as a refresher for anybody or anyone who's new to this little guy right here is an AV robot. So this figure is produced by Nemo's Factory, and it is a very unique Glyos figure. I have it in Ultra Bronze here, which is a metallic swirled plastic. I got this guy a long time ago, but it kind of gives you an idea of what the AV robot is like. It's very tall, very slender, very mechanically detailed, and also has the best pair of sneakers in the Glyos verse, if I can get it to focus here. You know, fly little sneakers with some lovely little wing details and just very highly detailed sculpt, including this beautiful back panel here with like this mechanical spine and all the little plugs and ports and wires that go down into the waist and these lovely little hands. So I mostly am showing off this guy here to give you an idea of what the AV robot is like. And come on, focus. There we go. As well as the fact that it comes with a couple of extra heads, including this lovely little camera head and this lovely little plate head. So I can show you a little something a bit different. That, of course, being these two bad boys. Say hello to the, one second, focus camera, thank you, the Medibot and the Ledger robot. So yeah, these are the two new AV robots that are coming out on the 14th, and I'm going to go ahead and show these guys off to you a little bit and show you what they've got going on. So we will actually start with the Ledger robot. So this little guy right here has some rather interesting things going on. So first things first, to tie him back into the lore of the egg, he has a different tampograph on there. So what this represents, as opposed to the different logo we have with the EcoPod, is that this little one represents the egg kind of shattering open and bursting forth new life, and the shards of the egg kind of going outwards. And basically this subset of the EcoPod that are egg devouts that have this kind of shattered look to them are known as the shards of the egg. And they are on the more militaristic side of the egg. When it comes down to needing to throw some punches, the shards are your devout followers of choice. So basically, the shards are the more militaristic version. And the Ledgerbot here is rather interesting. It is basically a subset of AV robots that are basically used by a bunch of different militaries. There's a lot of different armies that use them. Not all of them are involved with the egg. But basically, the idea behind them being that, excuse me, that they basically collect data and information and are supposed to be impartial data collectors out there on the battlefield. But they're also programmed to defend themselves. So here's a question for you. If your main prerogative is to, have a little, if you're programmed for self-sufficiency and wanting to survive, wouldn't it be helpful if the army you're working for succeeds? Yeah, there's some fun lore bits in there, but I just absolutely love this guy's, particularly his color scheme, which is a little bit hard to, come on, focus. There we go. As you can see here, it's this nice foresty green that reminds me a bit of a type of olive. It's not a traditional pimento green olive, but instead this kind of brighter green one. I can't remember what it is off the top of my head, but just this kind of nice full green here. And he also has a little tampograph on his side there, those representing his rank. And the thing I love about him here is he has the fly sneakers that all AV robots have, but he also has these paint details here that kind of make them look like boots. Another thing I love here is he has this kind of brown accent on the hands and the waist. I personally like to think of that as like maybe gloves or a belt, but I quite enjoy that little look here. He's got his little head right here, which is the monitor head, which kind of reminds me of like really old like computer style systems where they had that kind of darker blackish screen where it would kind of come through kind of like an old CRT television in a way. But he's very, very nice. But he also comes with his additional heads. So we have here the little camera head, which comes with a secondary piece, which is the neck, which allows it to have a lot of tilting and kind of different kinds of expression. I will say, if you are going to swap out these heads here, you're going to have to be very gentle. You're either going to want to warm this up a little bit with your fingertips, or a little bit of warm breath, or even a hairdryer if you're gentle with it, and just kind of gently warm up this part of the peg and the part where it goes into the neck. Because Glyos PVC is very sturdy, and it can be a little bit hard to get in there sometimes if it's a little bit cold. For the most part, Glyos parts tend to go together better when they're a little bit warmed up. It's just kind of the material they're made of. But so you have those two here. But one thing I want to point out with this guy is his color scheme is not perfectly a reference to an older Glyos color scheme, but it is close. And that color scheme that it is referring to is Volcrian. So this is the only Volcrian figure I have. This is Taskmaster Volk from the Warlords of War drop, I think sometime last year. I can't remember off the top of my head, but Volcrian is, excuse me, is this kind of nice dark green kind of color that's a little bit different than this one. It's going to be probably a little bit hard to see on camera, but you can see that Ledgerbot is a little bit brighter of green, but they accent each other very, very nice. I just really quite like Mr. Ledgerbot here with his little unique color scheme. He looks just really good in general next to a Volcarian figure, which is great because Volcarian is a figure colorway that's been released quite a few times in Glyos and is kind of famous for being part of this very big O'Neill wave back in the day where they introduced not only the, I think it's the Volcaria Task Force in the lore, basically a subset of the Glylaxia, Glyaxia military, but also introduced the Delphi and the Armorvore, really early Glyos, O'Neill design lore stuff. So this color scheme is quite fond of, quite fondly loved in the Glyos verse. But yeah, so obviously you can see like here, if I were to swap out the feetsies and put on the fancy shoes onto this guy, provided they go in, you can see that those match each other. So they don't have quite exactly the same color scheme, but this nice new olive green that the Ledgerbot comes in plays really nicely with Volcarian and some older colorways, which is lovely. Personally, I just love the Ledgerbot for the fact that it is a very unique take on the AV robot. I don't think we've seen an AV robot released in quite like this color scheme, and it just has a very different militaristic feel to it that I think is really, really neat. And I love the lore behind these guys with the Omeg and the shards and that kind of thing, and just the idea of the AV robots joining up with this group of Kraboth to protect the universe and that kind of thing, I think is just really, really fun. But he's not the only AV robot that is coming out in this wave. Allow me to get poor Taskmaster Volk's foot out of the way here. But we also have this boy right here coming out. So this is the Medibot. And as you can see here, he also has a tampograph for the shards. Slightly different. I've been told by Cappy that these different appearances of the shard tampograph represent different ranks and different functions that they have. So, for example, Ledgerbot would be on military intelligence. This guy would be on, medical staff, that kind of thing. So you can kind of come up with your own ideas as to how the lore would go. And interestingly, this guy is also of the same rank with this fun little tampograph here. But the Medibots are pretty interesting. Basically, they are both a walking kind of IV drip. Like I like to think that their hands like swap out into like syringes and they go in there and can be little IV drips for troops that have been harmed and put in harm's way in the battle to protect the ecospheres and that kind of thing. Whilst also being an actual doctor and being there to help you. So basically it's a doctor and medical equipment all in one. And, discussing with Cappy, he's kind of said that, a lot of the stuff with the Ecopod and the shards in particular, having to be out there and fighting all the time, a lot of the Medibots focus on, getting them patched up and getting them back out there, and they are quite busy and very bustling guys. But I have never seen an AV robot in pure white PVC before. It is a lovely, lovely color to have these guys in. So it just shows off the sculpt so well. So we'll start down at the feet here with the fancy shoes. So this guy comes with a nice pair of fancy kicks. Nice white sneakers with red details on the wings on the side of the shoes and some shoelaces. He also has some nice black accents, such as on the large joint at the hip. That little molded in piece right there has been painted. He's got these black connector pieces on the back for the arms. He's got the tampograph, he's got the screen, but my favorite part is this tampograph right here, this red that comes down from the heads and goes into the spine. What are you doing? What are you doing? Come on. My dog says hello, everybody. She had to run over and look at all of the action figures I'm playing with. But I love that thing right there. I'm not quite sure what I think it is. Like, obviously, you can come up with your own ideas for what it is. I'm either thinking it's like a big power cable that goes up the back of the robot and goes into the head and is a part of the circuitry, but another part of my brain is like bloody spine, and just some sort of weird body horror going on. You can hack in it any way you want, but this guy is quite neat, and I love the idea of you have this very, interwoven and very busy kind of medical group that's running around trying to help this very busy faction, just trying to patch everybody up as fast as they can and get everybody out the door, but also being quite pristine and cool looking. I just think it's really neat. But there's a couple of interesting things with this robot. So, for example, the monitor head that AV robots come with a secondary peg that you can kind of smush in there. Like I said, these guys work better if you heat them up a little bit. And now you have a different head that's on top of the monitor head that has this kind of bulkier assemblage with like a little sensor that comes out that I think is quite neat. And then he also comes with a few other pieces. So he's got the little plate face right here. It's probably going to be a little bit hard to see in this lighting, but he has very gentle little gray eyes with blue irises in there and a little mouth. It's very kind of stoic and that kind of thing. Can imagine this face being on an AV robot Medibot that's just patching up some guy and sending him out, and the guy he's patching up is like, hey, this still feels a little bit weird, and just turns to him and is just like, you want me to kiss it before I send you out? Like, just kind of a sassy and tired doctor face, at least in my opinion. And then you have this head right here, which I actually do, I really, really like this one. It's a monitor head, but it comes with that red right there, and it has this kind of glossy blue lens on the top of it. Let me see if I can get it on here. So, get in there. Yeah. So if you heard that, that was me very gently breathing some warm breath onto this piece right here, and then where that peg goes in, and it just makes this head go on a lot easier. So you can have this guy kind of with the neck swiveled back, so he looks a little bit taken aback, or maybe like he's leaning in that direction to talk to somebody, or looking back over his shoulder. The camera head on the AV robots always has a lot of nice expressiveness to it. But yeah. So these two lovely boys will be going up on Cappy's site on the 14th. I'm not quite sure the drop time. All that information along with links to Cappy's Instagram and basically the storefront as well, and information about the drop will be in the description. So I hope that you guys end up considering picking up a few of these guys. They are wonderful little creatures, and I think that they would be a lot of fun. They're not like any other AV robots I have or have seen. They have a much different aesthetic, and the lore that ties them together I think is really, really cool. And you can have a lot of your own little stories with these guys. So I hope you enjoyed, and have a good one, and maybe come back tomorrow, because there might be something else in the works. But you all have a good one.